So what we're looking at here is, well, it's labeled as Phalaenopsis speciosa brick red, but it looks a lot more like what is often sold as Phalaenopsis tetraspis C1. That's the one that has got the sepals sort of bicolor sepals, randomly colored. This one has a beautiful fuchsia and white color scheme. Some of the flowers are almost alba, just a little bit of fuchsia in the lip. Those two flowers at the back there. And these two flowers at the front have the stunning color combination there, really clean, almost like a designer. Wouldn't be out of place in a designer catalogue. Amazing. One has to wonder what the purpose would be. How the genetics, how does it end up like this? This species, well, tetraspis and speciosa, there's a lot of confusion whether it's one species, two species. I think they come from the Nicobar Islands, just off the coast of Thailand. It's lowland tropical species. They would therefore like a lot of heat, but I'm growing with less heat than that, especially in the winter. It's not really possible for me to have, well, not really desirable to have 30 degrees. While outside it might be -5 or -10 degrees, it will be incredibly expensive to heat to that degree extent, so I don't. But this plant and the other Phalaenopsis that I've got seem to be able to cope with it. I've had this plant for about a year. It's grown some pretty good roots, so seems to be doing okay. It will get good heat in the greenhouse over summer at least, so that should keep it happy. It does have it is fragrant. The fragrant is not really sweet. I would describe it as kind of a green fragrance. If you can imagine what that might be. It's a little bit like mowed grass. It's quite an unusual fragrance. I can't really describe it that well. But yeah, this is a really stunning species, and I'm very happy to have it flowering. When I bought the plant, it already had the flower spikes on it, so that was a year ago. And they did nothing for all this time until now. Then all of a sudden it pushed out some flowers, but there's still another flower spike here which has actually got some branches on it, but no flowers. And if we look at the leaves, yeah, it hasn't grown that much since I've had it, so that might possibly be a point of concern long term if this plant is going to prosper. But yeah, well, just enjoy it for what it is, because it's a stunner and I'm really happy with it. And I've got another one down here, another really interesting little species here. This one is Chibai, Phalaenopsis Chibai. Really interesting spire of little flowers. I think they're pink. They should be opening up soon. And there's another 2 spikes there as well. So just a little plant, but it's going to put on a very nice display. Now we've got a big Cymbidium species here in flower. Yeah, a really big plant. It's a bit too big really, but it will go into the garden in summer. This is a species, I've forgotten the name, I think it might be Devonianum. It's a pretty good display this year. Nice red tips on the lips, but yeah, it takes up a bit too much space in the greenhouse in winter for my liking. Out in the greenhouse now, and this is Paphiopedilum philipinensis variation rubelinii. It's pushing out a spike, and rubelinii is the way you can distinguish these is that they have narrower leaves than the normal form, and they're also smaller, so smaller plants. I thought it was that they have very long petals, but it turns out that that's not actually the case. Yeah, so this spike looks like it's got at least 3 flowers in it. We'll have to wait and see how many it turns out to be, but it is quite a small plant, and I was surprised that it's already flowering. I've only had it for less than a year, so very good. I think this one was from Schroeder as well. Yeah, that's from Schroeder. Here's the label. So good job to get a near flowering size plant that actually is flowering size. Happy with that. And here's another little Paph coming into spike. This one's from Kramer Orchids in southern Germany. Incorrectly labelled, but it's a hybrid, a colourful little hybrid as I recall, so we'll see when that one opens up. Moving across to the Vanda section, got a Ascocentrum ampuloceum here in a little wine glass. This one's got a nice spike on it. Yeah, I had this one in a bark mix, but it wasn't doing that well, and when I moved it into the glass culture, it definitely preferred that in my conditions at least, and it's rewarding me now with a flower spike, so very good. And here we've got a little Coelogene Chloroptera. It's also just opened up. Really nice, I like this. It's also got a fragrance. Let me just check it. Well, it's certainly a lot more subtle than the Gongora, but it's still kind of a little bit on that sickening sweet, sickly sweet note. Not as nice as the Phalaenopsis that I had inside. But yeah, so these are lovely green, translucent green with the kind of burnt orange contrast, and this one is putting out 2 growths on it. They flower on the new growth, so they flower directly. I think I've had this plant for probably 7 years by now, maybe a little bit longer. But, yeah, it's doing well. And over here I've got another one, another fragrant one, Maxillaria, I think it's Cattleya. This one has a really beautiful fragrance. It's like a spicy coconut type of flavour. I know that the coconut orchid, was it tenuifolia, something like that? It's probably quite similar. And this one does quite well out in the garden during the summer, so I'll be moving that out into the garden in the coming weeks. Yeah, so this, what I've got here is some little Paphs and Phalaenopsis. So I've moved the Phalaenopsis out into the greenhouse now after being in the house over summer. It does get quite a bit warmer out here in the greenhouse, and yeah, these plants like it. The ones that don't like it have gone the other direction into the house from the greenhouse. So the intermediate growers go into the house over summer where it's a bit cooler. I just want to show this Phalaenopsis ludemaniana. Yeah, look at the roots on that, and put out this flowering spike as well. But the cat somehow got to it, and the end of it died off, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see from these roots this plant appears to be pretty happy, and I always thought with these species that it would be really difficult to grow them in my conditions. It just wouldn't be warm enough, but if you look at them, they're all doing fine. They're all doing great, in fact. So they do seem to be able to cope fine with a little bit cooler conditions than what you might imagine from reading the cultural conditions that people recommend. Of course, if you're living in Florida or something like that, it's probably ideal, but they can also be grown cooler, and then the same goes for this. That's not the same as saying they can be grown cool. They can be grown cooler than hot, which I'd say probably translates to intermediate to warm, if you want to put it into that kind of orchid growing jargon. Yeah, so a bit of heat in the summer, but in the winter just normal household temperatures will be fine. And to be honest, I think a lot of them will also do okay with normal household temperatures through the summer as well. It probably just depends on your location. Obviously, if you can get a bit more sun onto the plants, that's going to heat the leaves up, and that's going to simulate a little bit warmer temperatures anyway. So that's probably the reason that these ones are doing okay, because I have given them quite good light, quite good sunshine during the winter, and yeah, they come through it without any ill effects. I just want to quickly take a look at this one, because this is my Myrmecophila exaltata, and I got this one from Orchids and More last year, June last year. I know that Karin in Sweden got the same plant at almost the same time, so it's maybe interesting to compare. But you can see that this has put a lot of roots out under these conditions in the greenhouse here, which again, not that hot in winter, not hot at all, 14 to 20 degrees, that kind of range. But now that's really getting warmer, and it's got a new growth coming there, but it's putting on a lot of root growth, so I'm not sure if it's going to be able to do well long term, but at least it appears to be going in the right direction. And while I'm up having a looking at these plants up here, I've also got an Evander species here, Evander Bensonii, and I noticed that it's got a little flower spike on it. Let's see if we can, there. Just got this one probably 6 months ago as well, and again, I was not sure if it would be able to cope with the cooler winter, but seems to be doing pretty well so far. Evander Bensonii. Let's get the label there. Yeah. So take a quick look at all of the Cattleyas. A lot of seedlings there. I won't go through all of them, so too many to go through anyway, and some Paphs in there as well, all doing quite well, all in active growth pretty much. But I thought just highlight this one, Laelia Zip. It's Milleri by Tenebrosa, really beautiful hybrid, and I just got this one probably a month ago, something like that. It was in one of the haul videos, but if you look, you can see it's putting out roots everywhere. So this is doing really well. I was really sort of worried about this one. This is a Brazilian import, I believe. I was worried if it would take on quickly enough, but it has taken on very quickly. It's hydrated and it's into growth, so that's perfect. I've got it in a little mix there with a bit of sphagnum moss, so this mix does hold a bit of moisture. When it gets bigger, I'll probably transition it into a different kind of setup, maybe something like this, what I've got my purpurata in a net pot there. Yeah, something a bit more well aerated. But because this is in such a tiny little pot, it's drying off fast enough, so the additional ventilation doesn't seem to be necessary. Alright, so let's take a look at the Masdevallias. So I'm hardening them off, getting them ready to go outside, where they shall remain until autumn. This is Masdevallia ignea, really spectacular species from the Andes. I think most of these Masdevallias are from the Andes mountains, through into Central America. Some species also are found. Yeah, but this one has got a lot of flowers coming out, a lot of spikes. So this should be a really nice display when that gets going. And the other one that I've got here is Masdevallia colossus, not quite open yet. But yeah, this is a pretty big Masdevallia, big for a Masdevallia. And this is one that can be grown a little bit warmer. I've had this for many years, and it has survived all sorts of abuse. It does prefer to go outside in the summer, so that will soon be going outside. Okay, and down here I've got a couple of more Masdevallias. So this one here is Viciana. This is the one that oh, hello puss. This is the one that grows on the mountain overlooking Machu Picchu in Peru at around 2,500 meters elevation. I've seen it there, and it was quite a stunning display. Big flowers, bigger than the ignea that I just showed, and this has got a spike on it, so we'll look forward to seeing that. And this one is Coccinea, again another very colourful one from the Andes. No flower spikes on that one. And I think this leaf here, I think probably got a bit too enthusiastic and maybe a little bit too cold at night. I left it out at night, and that was a few weeks ago. I think it got down below 5 degrees, or around 5 degrees, probably just a little bit too cold. So here's another one that's coming into bloom. It's Encyclia randii. There's a little flower spike there. I've had this one for I think about 5 years. I thought it was just a tiny little miniature and that it was almost blooming size, but turned out that it still had quite a bit of growing to go do. But yeah, so here's the mature pseudobulb, which is blooming size. So yeah, I'm happy to finally get something happening on this one. Be interested to see how it turns out. So this is Masdevallia ignea in the afternoon sunlight. Beautiful colours, and of course the camera won't represent it. It's a very rough approximation of what I'm seeing, but very beautiful. I'd like to thank you for spending the time to take a look at my orchids, and I'd love to hear any comments if you've got them. Bye.